Good afternoon. It is so fabulous to see everybody here for Poets in the Conversation Room. And I am just delighted to say that this Saturday is a fabulous day for poetry. And we, Grace Cavalieri and I, my co-host, we are thrilled to see really each and every one of you. I would like just to give special thanks today to Frank Rowson family in honor of Nancy Buchenauer, as well as Lynn and Nat Cohen. Thank you so much for your continued support. I'd like to welcome everyone, and you are in for a fabulous treat with our poets today. And I'll now turn the mic over to our incredible co-host, Grace Cavalieri. Thank you.
And that was my incredible co-host, Kimberly Taylor, who has Annapolis Home Magazine and sponsors this event. So this is our second season, and we are really thrilled to bring poetry to Annapolis. Annapolis had everything. It had music, it had dance, it had symphonies, it had everything but poetry. And now we needed a room in the house, and what better place than St. John's to do that, which is a bastion of thinking and talking and now poetry. So we have two poets today, Kim Roberts Meikle, who was Kim Roberts 1 week ago, and is now 2 weeks ago, and is now married to the lovely Tracy. And Michael Gushu, proud graduate of St. John's College. So how we're going to do that is that each one of our poets is going to read solo for 10 minutes, and then they will read in dialogue to each other because they have written this book, collaborated in this book about science fiction films, where Kim would see a film and not understand it and write a poem about that, and Michael would explain it and write a poem back to her. So it's a fascinating book, Questions and Answers for the End of the World. I'm going to introduce Michael first. One would think I'd be ready. I've been up since 6. Okay, Michael Gushu is a graduate of St. John's, class of 1979. His books are Questions and Answers for the End of the World, with Kim, Sympathy for the Monster, Gather Down Women, Pachiko Mouth, Conrad, and with C.L. Bledsoe, the Judy poems, and I Never Promised You a Sea Monkey. He co-ran the Bawa Poetry Series and Poetry at the Watergate. He and C.L. Bledsoe have also published a novel, which I read on Substack, called Chip Andrews' Boy Exorcist, and it is amazing. It comes out every week. He lives with his wife, Susan, in the Brookland neighborhood of Washington, D.C., and he has 5 beautiful children. So after our reading, we will then have a book signing across the street under the guise of Melinda Rooney, who is here. Thank you, Melinda. So here's Michael.
Grace, thank you so much, and thank you for having us. And Kimberly, thank you. And thanks to all of you for coming. I know it's a conflict of a day, so I really appreciate people coming to hear poetry, and it's a noble endeavor to sit here, trust me. Not necessarily mine, but poetry in general. I'm going to start with 2 poems from the book Gather Down Women, which are, generally speaking, monologues by women from Greek myth. The book starts with a quote from the Ion, and I'm going to put my reading glasses on, as you can see, and narrate what I'm doing, putting my other glasses away. From the Ion, but it is a God who through all draws human souls where he wills, making one dependent on another's power. And the cover sort of gestures towards that. The first one is Iphigenia. As you know, Iphigenia was sacrificed by her father Agamemnon on Aulis so that the Greek ships could sail to Troy. And this is Iphigenia speaking. You showed me how to loose bright thigh meat from its column of bone, cut away the thick tendon, wrap flesh in a caul of fat. Walking back, you let me carry the shining blade in my small hand. That night, I watched as you rolled a drop out of the two-handled cup, let it fall to the ground, a black stain. I dreamt a clearing of white sand, a bowl edged in thorns and gorse. A heart leapt from nowhere into that arena. So close, I felt its breath against my cheek. Flames like curtains of sky rippled around its body, up its neck and motionless head, up past the antlers, its eyes enormous gold-black coins. Today, I found a sea urchin stranded in a pool among the darkening rocks. Its quills, ivory and royal purple, waved like lances in the clear water. I brought it to you among your ships. Legs stained with salt, you held it as if to listen, then threw it and turned to go. My hand was wrapped in your glittering palm. And the second one is Echo, the wood nymph, the mountain nymph who lost her voice, who could only repeat the end words of what people said, fell in love with Narcissus, or Narcissus, I guess in Greek, and wasted away because he followed him. Anyway, so Echo. And a lot of them start with epigrams from the plays or whatever they're from. This starts with one from Metamorphoses. One day the nymph Echo saw him, Narcissus, driving frightened deer into his nets, she who cannot be silent when others have spoken and cannot speak for herself, which is resonant, is it not? A god took its bright spear, thrust through the gate of my mouth, the point twisted around. My voice was chaff taken by wind, all the words in me headless birds falling like stones from a black sky. How I ache for silence, to curl into its dark hollow, its small nest, a wood thrush exhausted by song. Beautiful hunter, I saw you climbing white Catheron, its limestone face tall as a wave where you shone forth. Hunter, your words push into me. My splintering tongue bursts in the red mirror of my throat. And I'm going to read just one poem from the. So that was sort of my first and penultimate book. It was reissued with some revisions. This is from a couple. This is just before that. It's called Sympathy for a Monster, and they are poems about movies. Some, like the one I read, also monologues by characters in the film. Some other various. It's a bunch of different kinds of stuff. So I'm going to read one based on Citizen Kane, which came out in 1940, and it starts with a quote from the movie by a character, and then it's related more or less by Charles Foster Kane, the object of the movie. Orson Welles said that it's not a movie about love, it's a movie about acquisition. But it's also a movie about memory, because everything takes place, if you know the movie, it's told in flashbacks, almost the entire thing. So time and memory are sort of entwined in the narrative itself. So, Citizen Kane. I remember everything. That's my curse. I thought if I saved everything, I too would be saved. How could I know things not thrown into the fire are thrown into the fire? Memory is a building made of other buildings, a warehouse filled with marriages, campaigns, arias, its heart a banked furnace always hungry for what you won't give away, won't keep, but remember. A white dress, a white parasol, a jigsaw puzzle. These two were eager to burn. What you love is what goes up in flame. a sprawling museum fallen to the ground, a private zoo, a snow globe, gondolas, a body, an imported tomb, a stenciled rose. So, all objects you can identify in the movie. The stenciled rose is a reference, of course, to Rosebud, the sled he had as a kid. I hope I didn't give anything away. And I'm going to finish with 2 new poems from a collection that will be coming out shortly, I think, sometime this year. And they involve the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. It's sort of a strange and different ecological area, a very poor soil, lots of sand. At one time, a heavy industry of iron foundries, and then covered back over. So it's kind of a post-industrial wilderness. This is Barrens too, so a description, kind of a description. The hognose snake turns in oxbows around loose strife and sedge. It wends through sugar sand. What do the ruddy streams and rills hold in their sluice and wash that flows through the pines? Water and earth are not separate domains. They couple like serpents, interlacing. Powderhorn and swamp beacon spatter the ground gray-green and chrome yellow. Pitcher plants, sundew, and bladderwort are predators in the nutrient-poor soil. They use snares, glue traps, drowning pools, and siphons to pull in their kill. The string-thin bones of mice and voles pulse white in needled patchworks of sunlight and shade. What memory is found in the torn sack of a snake's shed skin? Life and death are not separate domains. They slip through the land's coarse sieve, the aquifer's plated layers. There is another world, the demiurge's vestibule, the world inside this one. And I'll finish with this one. So just very briefly, fire, as people have learned, plays an important ecological role in most areas of most unpopulated areas, and it's true for the Pine Barrens, which have to undergo fires occasionally to get life going again. This is kind of about that. Barrens fire. All wildfires have a molten angel at their heart, a blinding flare. Every fire has its strengths, its quarry, its own stride and pace, crawling through dry thickets, racing across acres of tinder, treetops exploding in blazing fusillades. Only after flames have swept through and burnt the trees' shed clutter can fireweed bloom out of the black earth, or laurel and huckleberry rhizomes push hard shoots through the charred debris, or sandreeds cast stolons across fire-cleared ground. Only a fire's heat can melt the resin that seals shut pitch pine cones, or pry open crooked scales like the fingers of a fist, loosing a scatter of seeds after armored bark flakes and cools. The ash underbrush, leaving clear, sandy soil ready for growth. Thank you.
We know it's a good poet when we always want more and more. And he embodies everything a poet can be. His humor is Mark Twain, and his knowledge of Greek and mythology is really something that you should read in the book. Women, what is the book on the Greek women called again? What is the book? The Greek Women.
Gathered Down Women.
Beautiful. So you'll get to meet Michael after this reading. And next we have Kim Roberts. Kim Roberts Meikle, who was Kim Roberts just 2 weeks ago, and we need to give her a hand for being married. Among other accomplishments, she has 7 books of poems, most recently Questions and Answers for the End of the World, which she shares with Michael, a collaboration, and 2 guidebooks, including The District's Departed, Walking Tours of D.C. Area Cemeteries. She co-curates D.C. Pride poem a day each June and co-directs the Pride Poetry Fellowship at the Arts Club of Washington. She's been the recipient of grants from the NEA, the NEH, the Humanities Council, the DC Commission on the Arts, the Rose Library at Emory, the Cafritz Foundation, the Jerome Foundation. She is Washington's historian, the historian of Washington's literary community, and she's a big deal. And here she is, Kimmy.
So I'm going to beg your indulgence because, married 2 weeks. I'm going to read only new love poems. And I also need to change my eyes. So this one is called Butterfly Pea. When I first saw a photo of a butterfly pea, I was pulled by the blue, deep, saturated, the color of twilight. Blue around a white center. Then the Latin, clitoria terneata, yes, shaped like a woman's sex. The tube-like calyx of 5 sepals partly fused, surrounded by the vivid cobalt of a large rounded banner, 2 furrowed wings, and 2 wrinkled white keels. When my girlfriend next caresses my wings, will I close my eyes to that twilight blue? When I press against her keels, will she break open in blossoms? Banner, wings, and keel. This is how we recognize the flower of the pea. My girlfriend is a species of pea. She teaches me facts about the dusk, its variations and anomalies. The blossoms, edible when tender, turn rice indigo. When lemon is added, the color changes to magenta. Texture of silk, faint aroma, the weight of her as she presses against my hand, the ripe weight. The fretwork of furrows on that crepuscular blue, nightfall's legs spread open, used to enhance memory, to relieve stress, sometimes to amplify a woman's libido. It grows on a twining vine in dry and rocky soils. Tender folds gather on its flying concave banner. Whispers loiter there, secrets on the tongue. So a lot of my love poems, you will see, are sort of intertwined with natural history. I tend to read a lot and fall in love with facts. This next one is called Bermuda Fireworm. And what can I say? The facts that I give you in this, as unbelievable as they seem, are real. Consider the Bermuda fireworm, a tiny marine invertebrate that Christopher Columbus described in 1492 as the flame of a small candle alternately raised and lowered against black water. Females, glowing cerulean stars, circle near the surface until males shoot up like tiny comets from the mucus tube homes where they sleep most of the year in anonymous benthic seabeds. In mating season, you can see their electric coils in the waves. Then the explosion like fireworks when they deposit their gametes. In preparation, all 4 of the male's eyes swell to twice their usual size. The better to see you with, my dear. Consider their complex internal clock. Fireworms mate in swarms exactly 57 minutes past sunset on the 3rd evening after a full moon in summer. The females circle and pulse like a bioluminescent ruffle. Timing so exact, such striking regularity. Wouldn't it be lovely to know to the minute that your expectations will be met? This one is called pollen. I'm not going to explain it. I think it's self-explanatory. Deep into the daylily's orange cup, the bee burrows. Only its rear, black and bulbous, is revealed among the anthers. I've been reading about women prophets. Deborah, whose name translates to bee in Hebrew. Melissa, whose name is bee in Greek. Like the bees, they knew a world twin to ours, could speak in a language of Devash and Malit, honey in Hebrew, honey in Hittite. Harbingers of a hidden realm, an inverted mirror world, whose enchantment sometimes seeps sugar across porous borders into ours. The worker bees are all female. In the compound facets of their eyes, petals are whorled and glow ultraviolet, bright with enticement. Honey, I call you, drawn into your hive. I make a beeline to you. I waggle. I love the matriarchy of our skep. We are helpmeets to each other. We are doubled. We love the thrum of the apiary, how pollen is stored in a bee's slender knees. Say the word entomophily. You are like that, always pocketing sweetness. Thank you for the aw. It is the honeymoon phase, yes. All right. Leaving the lights on. I'm leaving the lights on for you in my body. Don't trip on the stairs. Look out for the rug in case it gets caught under the door jamb. Do you have your reading glasses? Don't worry, no words are needed. If you forget the word for body, you can substitute the word noun instead. I know there are 101 obstacles to my noun. Don't let the mess upset you or slow your progress. The front door of my body is unlocked. You don't need to search for a key. There's good music and that wine you love. The party starts when you arrive. And just two more? Do I have time for two more? Okay, all right. When I married, one of the side benefits was the Meikle family shell collection came into my joint possession, which is an amazing thing. It is. This is called Reclassifying the Seashells. Tracy lines up shells on the dining table, has 4 guidebooks open. This one has a tighter whorl. That one is ridged. What is a species? If 2 can interbreed, Carl Linnaeus would group them together. He got so much wrong. We're still stuck with his binomial nomenclature, although scientists argue and reassign. The seashells of the family Cassidae are divided into helmets and bonnets. My non-binary love wants to get this right. The Latin name, the common name, the helmets, like toy tanks, armored lines of raised bumps along arching purple backs and huge, fat lips widening their bases. The smaller bonnets, delicate, pale cream stripes fading to white. You can see why they were named for ladies' hats. Tracy wants to honor her family's shell collection, her mother's spindly handwriting on small slips of paper curls into illegibility. How they used to fight over hair ribbons, her mother's girly expectations. Tracy has forgiven her. Still, she yokes herself to this rigid classification system with such sweet care, copying gendered names on tiny labels. How often our language chains us to one choice or another. How often nature blurs the lines. Take slipper limpets, for example. Always born male, they grow up female. Their pale cream shells cambered as they glue themselves in massive stacks of ascending delicacy. Oh, the natural world is such a queer place. I'm going to end with a poem that was written in honor of my father-in-law, Donald Meikle, who passed away last year. And last year and the year before that, I had the great pleasure to be a poet in residence at Dumbarton Oaks Conservancy in Washington, D.C., which is there's the formal property that is now a museum owned by Harvard, and there are these incredible gardens. If you next time you get to D.C., come to Dumbarton Oaks. The gardens were designed by one of the earliest professional women landscape architects, and they are formal Italian and French gardens. And then as you go down this steep hillside, and it's very steep, when you get to Dumbarton Run in the stream valley, it's almost wild, or that it was meant to look wild, but of course it was designed that way, right? And that wild part is now run by the National Park Service. And so it was that sort of made to look wild part that I was there to interpret. But I couldn't help it. I kept going up the hill further to these formal gardens. And one of the oldest Katsura trees, we think, in all of North America is on that property. And so that's what I write about here. And so this is Octopus Katsura in memory of Donald Meikle. I visit the heritage Katsura on the east lawn at Dumbarton Oaks, planted sometime in the 1890s from seeds imported from Japan. Kurato Fujimoto, a master gardener, calls it Tako no Katsura no Ki, the octopus tree. If, like an octopus, a brain resides at the end of each arm, this tree can continue thinking. 2 years ago, Fujimoto made supports from white pine and rope called huzues, or chin canes. Think of how you rest your chin in one palm when deep in thought. Huzues prop the katsura's low horizontal branches to stretch their long fulcrum lengths out. American arborists prune old trees of their branches and cable the trunks to hold them vertical, but this kind of care is an import, like the tree itself, emphasizing the extremities rather than the crown. This tree, with its heart-shaped leaves, consoles. These past years, my father-in-law, Don, was in and out of the hospital. My Tracy favors him. His nose, the shape of his face, are echoed in hers. He was always best with an entourage, even though he couldn't recall our names. How hard it is to know when to stop treating symptoms. How his face bloomed, although he no longer understood our jokes. The chin canes lean, following the branch's natural contours, bearing their beautiful weight. Thank you.
And we are going to ask our poets to sit here, and we're going to circulate their poems and ask you to read them and then to...
We're going to read two of our own?
Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
okay, sit together with
Okay.
your dialogue.
All right.
And after that, I guess let's wait till they do their dialogue. Oh,
However you want to do it, Grace.
we'll do this first.
So we'll read a couple poems from here first?
Yeah, just...
Okay, great. I'll just say very briefly, Kim and I watched a bunch of science fiction movies together, and Kim would write a poem about it. She initiated this project, and there's a lot of protocols which I won't go into. So we would watch the movie. Kim would write a poem, responding to the movie. I would write a poem, responding to the movie, and responding to Kim. And I would say setting the record straight, although I'm not sure that's what Kim would say.
I would say that science fiction movies in general, especially the ones we were writing about ones from the 1950s and the 60s, are surprisingly unsciency.
Do you want to start with Mothra versus Godzilla?
Okay, Mothra. Oh, change my eyes again. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So, I think the only thing that you really need to know in advance of us reading this is that Michael was raised with these movies. That
By these movies.
Michael would not be Michael without, Godzilla movies. And I had never watched any of them. This is called I Have So Many Questions After Watching Mothra versus Godzilla. Moths are not hatched from eggs, I argue. Tracy says, this isn't science, but wasn't the whole point of Fear of Science? Wasn't the movie inspired by nuclear explosions, radiation fallout, fears of nuclear annihilation? All the lessons we failed to learn from Hiroshima. Lessons about manipulating the environment, the hubris of man. No egg, however fabulous, can make the audience forget the hubris of Shizunura Happy Amusement Park. Its machines pumping steam into a giant incubator. Other massive machines pump water from wetlands. Will people really pay to stand and watch an egg hatch? Hordes of people get evacuated too late when Godzilla comes crashing through their high-rises. A larger version of Godzilla, his scale changes, roams the countryside. The military commander tears up the countryside, herding the monster with bombs. Why not kill him with the bombs? Can Godzilla only die from electrocution? And why the nets? The enormous moth larvae paralyze Godzilla by shooting nets or some kind of cocoon from their jagged maws, while a reporter stands watch, eating eggs. Why regular chicken eggs? Who can understand the two tiny women called Peanuts who chant inscrutable hymns? They are larger than peanuts, though very tiny for humans, another problem with scale. Late-stage capitalism creates problems much worse than bad science, Michael argues, recalling that cabinet full of cash. But I argue instead about the details. What was that iridescent blue blob the photographer found? What if twice the Mothras blew twice the hurricanes from their oversized wings? I realize it's meant to be a fable, but I persist. You do realize that moths are not hatched from eggs.
Thank you, Kim. So so the title of Kim's poem is I Have So Many Questions After Watching Mothra versus Godzilla. The title of my poem is I Have the Answers to Mothra versus Godzilla.
So there.
Yeah. As we leave the Meyer Auditorium, Kim asks, what is Mothra versus Godzilla? How could I answer her? I do not know what it is any more than she. I know that in Mothra versus Godzilla, a giant egg floats into a bay and is hauled ashore onto the flat sands, a perfect ovoid patterned in blue and yellow pastels, dwarfing the villagers ringing it. But what is the point of this enormous egg? For the businessman and his secret partner, it is a spectacle, a prima materia, bivouacked, held captive in Shizunura Happy Center in a crystal palace. A photojournalist, a scientist, and a reporter walk onto a sandbar And the Kanushi asks, what is the sound of one hand shelled in a gutta percha glove on a double bass? Sorry. It is Godzilla, hatching out of the muck of reclaimed fens. Only a moth can save us now, but add Ra from Kujira, whale, for Motha's vast size. Why is the comic relief reporter always eating eggs? Why are they always cooked differently? Because he is a holy fool. Because Mothra dies, and after death comes transfiguration. Out of a perfect elliptic, what looks like two caterpillars covering Godzilla with spider silk, is also the twins' being and non-being binding chaos. The point of the egg is to hide its point, to be both Orphic dancer and dance. In Star Wars, Mark Hamill wants to know why they were clean as a whistle after escaping the Death Star's trash compactor. Shouldn't my hair be dirty from the garbage? Harrison Ford whispers to him, it ain't that kind of movie, kid. But no movie is that kind of movie. Each is an ovum full of stars and monsters, an oospore of dreamtime to quell our rampaging minds, a cocoon out of hopeful screen stuff woven. So that gives you a sense.
These movies explain so much about Michael.
Or yeah.
Would you explain the
Oh,
you made a
so
reference for the gutta percha glove,
if people
right?
if you remember Godzilla's cry, it was made by rubbing a gutta percha glove on a
Gutta percha is
kind of
rubber. Before rubber was made,
Yeah.
that was what they used.
rubbing it on a resin-coated double bass that's like been loosened the strings a lot. So it's that weird sound that they figured out how to make.
And
it.
of
So,
course, Michael knows all the backstories.
we. Why don't we read the day the Earth stood still?
Oh, okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll finish up.
Okay. So I don't know how many people here are familiar with the day the Earth stood still. It's one of the one. Thank you. It's one of the ones that's actually set in Washington D.C. So I got very excited about that, my hometown there. And the spaceship lands on the National Mall, and there's these great backdrops of the Capitol all throughout. So all of my poems start with, I have so many questions after watching whatever the movie is, and all of Michael's are, I have all the answers. So this is, I have so many questions after watching The Day the Earth Stood Still. Why is there always a soldier or a cop too quick to pull a trigger? Tracy claims the movie is the American version of Godzilla. She says it triggers all of America's worst shared cultural anxieties. Every spaceman's always in skin-tight lame. Every spaceship is always spinning like a top. Why such emphasis on heads of nations? The top leaders will never agree to meet. The alien, soft-spoken and polite, meets every expectation of a superior being, especially his command of math. Being an ambassador, he picks up cues quickly. Why does he carry diamonds? Cue the ominous music as Patricia Neal trusts the alien to babysit. Her son kneels at his father's grave at Arlington National, then takes him to the Lincoln Memorial, the National Mall. The alien stops everything electrical for half an hour. But car engines aren't electrical, and they stop too. Tractors stop. No lives are lost. Planes in midair don't stop when the rest of the world stands still. It's an alien party trick. Still, we're certain this day can't end well when Patricia Neal has to memorize that well-known phrase, Platu Barada Nikto. In the arms of Gort, she grows limp. The authorities pick up arms. Why is there always a soldier or cop too quick to pull a trigger?
I have the answers to the day the earth stood still. Leo Tolstoy said there are only two stories. In one, Don Johnson and Benji the dog leave their home in a nuclear desert to seek adventure and hot young women. In the other, a UFO lands near the White House in Washington, D.C. Perfectly smooth, sleek, it opens seamlessly for a man wearing a silver jumpsuit, face hidden in an orb, to descend the ramp and proffer a gift. He is shot and wounded. His garb is no more than a flimsy jumpsuit of foil. His super gadget shatters on the mown lawn. It is more fragile than glass. However, the saucer and Gort, the giant robot, turn out to be impervious and indestructible. As Gort vaporizes artillery, Klaatu heals faster than an axolotl Sufi, goes walkabout in the capital city. A briefcase tag names him John Carpenter. He astounds the world's greatest scientist, scribbling Talmudic equations in chalk. Uses the hardest of gemstones, love-bearing diamonds, for cash. And he's great with kids, too. A single mom trusts him, but her boyfriend, a treasury tax collector, betrays him. Klaatu is killed, but is resurrected to deliver the good news. Giant robots are in charge of us and the universe. It's the gospel truth. Klaatu ascends skyward, sacrificing himself so that our bad choices and worse behavior might be rewarded with obliteration. What does it mean for us to have free will when everything is at stake? The earth stands still. We are terrified of moving. And that's just a taste of the many movies you can experience in poetic form in Q&A for the End of the World. There were 9 movies altogether, but
But that's not all.
that's not all.
Michael included a list of additional movies that he thought,
I-
anyone like me, a naif, needed to watch to complete their film education.
I think I whittled it down to 49 eventually.
He was a John.
Yeah.
So we have circulated poems by our two poets. We ask you to read them and then to address any questions you have. And they'll all be.
Do you want us to read them? Do you want us to read them?
You have time for one more?
It's up to you, Grace. Should we read them out so people have it here? Okay. Why don't we read La Jetée?
Okay. All right. Do you want to say anything about this movie?
Yeah, this movie is a half-hour French film by the New Wave director Chris Marker, not his real name. And it's a time travel tale. It's an art film. It is science fiction. It's told in almost entirely still photographs with a narrator and music. And it's a twisty half-hour, very influential film. So, good.
There was a more contemporary movie with Brad Pitt called 12 Monkeys that you might have seen, and that was loosely based on La Jetée. All right. I have so many questions after watching La Jetée. A delicate woman, hair blowing, raises a hand to her mouth. Why are some childhood memories engraved so indelibly? Why are some images graven into scars? The boy stands on a viewing platform, a pier at Orly Airport. A man suddenly collapses. The boy peers. Only later does he realize he has seen a man die. Was this the final scene of a truncated childhood? Just before the outbreak of World War III, the destruction of Paris, broken church spires, half an Arc de Triomphe, all is ruin and rubble. Everything above ground ruined by radioactivity. The survivors move into darkness. Why whispers, hypodermic needles, blindfolds to darken his eyes? What is this loophole scientists have found to send prisoners through time? The man finds himself stripped of the present, he suffers. On the 10th day, images ooze like confessions. On the 30th day, she arrives with her sidelong freckles. She brings a stunning array of dateless pleasures. She brings him to a public garden. He feels glass, plastic, terry cloth. Now he's sure. He feels she must be his. Why is there no dialogue? Just the narrator's report of dialogue. Why is there no movement? Just photographic stills. On the 50th day, they visit a museum of stilled animals, stuffed tapir, hippo, pelican, wild cats. She calls him her ghost. We discern his heartbeat, a wild echo. Next, the scientists intend to slip him into the future. What can they learn? Their intentions refuse the slag of future time. He runs toward his beloved one more time along the viewing pier at Orly. A shot resounds, loud as a choral requiem. The man shot from childhood returns. That haunting moment. Was his own death foretold? Just at that moment, a delicate woman, windblown, raises a hand to her mouth.
Nice. Very nice, Kim.
Why, thank you, Michael.
Yep. So my poem is the penultimate poem in the collection, and it follows. There's one that follows by Kim, and it varies the title formula, and which is, "I have no answers to La Jetée." A director who uses a nom de guerre, a movie in black and white, made almost entirely of still photographs, and yet calls itself a ciné-roman, a film novel. Its title means the pier, a structure that extends away from land over moving, unknown depths. It's a story about a time traveler, and it returns to its beginning at the end, and seems to loop, but it doesn't. It's a spiral, because remembering and oblivion are cells in the mind's chambered nautilus, where both obsession and deception swirl inward. In memory's army, we are all foot soldiers of misfortune. Our weapons are forgetting and fiction. The battleground is time, a labyrinth made by two parallel lines, a museum built of sentences, clocks, broken crockery, earthen vessels patched together by gold or by an image. The only moving part of La Jetée is a brief moment where a woman wakes up in bed at dawn. She looks straight into the camera, smiles. It's over in an instant. Birds can be heard on the soundtrack. I don't know what it means. Thank you. So.
That's so beautiful. Miracle. Well, people can read poems and then barrage you with questions.
Okay. Would people like to know more about how we ended up writing this odd book? That'd be good. Kim, do you want to give how we started? How we started?
Well, it was Tracy's fault. So Tracy saw that at the Smithsonian Asian Art Museum, they were doing a free screening of some of the Godzilla movies. And so she said, well, we should go. And the first one was Godzilla versus Mothra, which is kind of funny because I hadn't seen the original Godzilla yet.
Or Mothra.
Or Mothra. We said, well, we should ask Michael to come too. Michael loves this stuff. And so we were walking out and you know, so much of the movie didn't make any sense, and so I'm barraging him with questions, and Michael is just totally exasperated with me. And we're in the same writing critique group that meets once a month. And so I went home and I wrote down all my questions, and I brought it in and into the group, and we talked about it. And Michael went home immediately and wrote I have the answers.
I felt the gauntlet had been thrown down.
And it became very clear when he realized I'd seen none of these movies, much less, none of the other, like, he just thought this was un-American. This was like, how could I call myself
Citizen.
a citizen, much less a historian, if I hadn't had this experience. And I had not realized that these were such a deep part of his psyche that, so at any rate, as it turns out, Michael not only knows all these movies and knows so much about them, but he owns copies of all of them. And thus, the Wednesday afternoon matinee was born. And I have never written a series of poems this quickly.
Yeah.
But because we were meeting once a week to watch a new film, I want to make sure they didn't blur together, and so I had to like pump these out. And and Michael, had a little more time with the answers, but I really had to,
Yeah.
So I would come on the Wednesday matinee afternoons with my little notebook, and Michael would sometimes have like things for me to read in advance. It was very anyway. All I can say is I did learn more about American culture and American movies, but I think the main thing that I learned more about was Michael.
Yeah, one of the subtexts to the book is, in fact, Kim and I watching these movies together and our own personalities and interaction and friendship overlaying that, so for sure. I will say that when it comes to writing, I am a stern taskmaster.
This is true. And what was great about this collaboration, I've done other collaborations with other people before, and some with other writers, some across genres. I worked at one point as a writer in residence with a modern dance company, and so I've done collaborations. But this was really intensive because not only was Michael writing responses, he was editing my poems. He would, there was this back and forth between the two of us about like, this is not working, or this, you have to be clearer about that, or, and then figuring out a sort of order for them. And I don't know, this book, we put it together, how long?
2 months.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah.
And I think because of the intensity of the collaboration, that also gives a sort of energy to the poems as a series that if we had taken longer with, maybe we wouldn't have had.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a sort of immediacy and cinematic quality to it. I feel like that because it moves. It moves.
Nice,
Everything moves
very
along.
nice.
Thank you. You're welcome. So it was a great amount of fun, and as Kim pointed out, these were all new to her. Whereas for me, I could watch the film, but also it was. They have taken up space in my brain for my entire life, and on both conscious and unconscious. So I was doing that. Yes, please. Yes.
My question is, did Kim's responses change your experience of the film?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, partially, it helped me pay attention, right? Because I've seen them so many times, it'd be hard to just to so familiar with them. But seeing them with Kim, and besides all the Kimness of that, it was like seeing it with with a new pair of eyes. So I felt like and then getting her poem evoked a whole bunch of stuff for me, things that I wouldn't have occurred to me, I think, or I wouldn't have figure out a way into a poem about that movie if it hadn't been for Kim's initial thing. So she was like the movies were the box, her poems were the key that I was able to unlock and open some stuff up. Yeah.
At what age did you start watching these
Oh,
films?
gosh, I don't know. There used to be movies on at 4:30, and there used to be movies on at 2, the Dialing for Dollars movies, and I would watch them. I would be babysat by them.
Before it was emotionally appropriate.
Yeah, very much so. So, I mean, probably the earliest one I remember would be when I was maybe 8. I saw The Thing from Another World. So that was probably, but I'm sure I saw movies before that too, Teenagers from Outer Space, when I was 5. I don't know. But from childhood on, and then I was sort of addicted to movies. Most of these were first seen on TV, and then when they would show up when there used to be repertory movie theaters, I would see them there too. So, and then all other kinds of movies from there. So, I don't know if that I don't know what that says about me or my home life, but I'm sorry.
My grandsons are now 8, but they've been loving. Their father. My son is introducing them. To
Yeah,
these
yeah.
old ones, but
God bless him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I polluted. I have my kid. Yeah, I ruined my kids too. So, but it was worth it. So yeah, and now I've got a grandson and a granddaughter, and I'm looking forward to when they're ready. So.
Kim, did you have a favorite movie and a favorite poem, and do they correspond?
Good question.
I don't know if I do. I mean, I have this sweet spot for the Godzilla ones. I ended up watching more than just the Godzilla versus Mothra. I don't know. Then I think about, La Jetée is the one that's just sort of an outlier in this series. It's the one that people are least likely to know in advance when they come to
Probably
it.
so. Yeah.
I will tell you that these movies they're like little capsules of their time. And so all of the, especially the gender roles for women and in almost every movie, you see only white people, and they are strong-chinned men sitting, around tables making decisions for the fate of the world, and women are just like
Getting coffee.
Yeah. If anything, in the background, they're, cooking.
Yeah.
So that in itself was really fascinating. It sort of, I don't know, I think these movies are a great reminder of socially, sort of psychologically, how much things have changed within my own lifetime. That was kind of amazing to see.
Right. But they're not antiques either.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
They
And a lot
resonate
of,
still.
And yeah. A lot of the concerns in these movies are still.
Or back. I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very contemporary.
Yeah. So they still resonate. So oddly enough. Yeah.
There seems to me in your poems to be sort of the spice is the humor. There's an underlying.
Yeah.
Is that in the movies, or was that just? I don't know these. movies.
I mean, there's some humor. Not all of them have humor. Some of them have, they'll have side characters that are humorous. But no, mostly they're
They're pretty serious.
Yeah, they're pretty straight up.
So
So
the humor is
they're
your
intended. They're supposed to scare us. So you have to be careful that you don't.
Maybe the fear comes from some other component of the movie.
I think that's very possible. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you, both of you, are thinking of doing another one of these. You could do something really great with Buñuel movies, like The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie.
I've had my secret ideas for doing more, but I don't know that I'd have to rope Kim back into it. Yeah, Brunel would be great. I was thinking of the Val Lewton movies from the 40s, The Cat People and those various ones. The sort of the classics.
I want to make a plug also for the book that Michael read just one poem from called Sympathy for the Monster. Those are more movie poems. And I think the the book is brilliant. It's my favorite of Michael's books. And so it was sort of a surprise that after he'd done that we ended up doing another movie book together.
Yeah.
I feel like he's in danger now of being typecast for who he really is.
Yeah, there's even a couple poems in my book that are for the same movie. So
Yeah.
so you can compare and contrast. Yes.
Thanks. This has been really fun. But these two poems are in response to seeing a short movie.
Yes.
And I'm not sure whether it's called ekphrastic. I'm in a poetry workshop every Monday night, and often a person will bring a poem that's in response to a picture
Yeah.
or an image or a painting or
Right.
something. But they're hoping that the poem will stand alone,
Yeah.
and we won't need to see the picture
That's-
for the poem to make the meaning of the poem to make sense. And I'm sorry to confess, I have not seen Godzilla movies, and maybe I should. This is a prompt,
Personal
I guess,
taste.
for an invitation to me to go see a Godzilla movie. I guess my question is, do you expect these poems to stand alone on their own and to make sense and have meaning if I haven't seen the movie?
Yes. So our hope was that you would have some sort of vague cultural references like I did when I came to this. So I'd heard of Godzilla, right? But I hadn't seen them. So I think just knowing what little you would know, you would pick up by being part of the culture is enough
Right.
to go into these.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, let me say, if they don't work on their own, then they're probably
We failed.
failures as poems. Yeah. So,
Some of the lines, like in Memory's Army, we're all soldiers of misfortune. That's very intriguing, and I wonder why there are no soldiers of fortune, only misfortune in Memory's Army.
I just didn't have room in the poem for them, but yeah, no, but misfortune because the movie La Jetée is it's a post-apocalyptic, so that's why misfortune suggests itself. So, but you could easily take that same phrase and apply it to a poem with Time Soldiers of Fortune too.
I like that line, and all it takes is one good line for me to like the poem.
I feel the same way. Yeah, yeah. Well, like movies, I know a lot of these movies are, pretty low budget, but all of them, I would argue, have an image or images that stick in the brain. That somehow they've achieved some kind of visual poetry with it, just by going through the regular grind mill of making grade B movies. So. I feel the same way about movies as I do about poems. If I can find one good line in it, it deserves being preserved. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. This has been so great.
I hope so.
Michael, with your interest in the Greek and the forms of this book, like the questions and answers, and I just wondered if you were playing around with perhaps rewriting some kind of Socratic dialogue between yourself, like the student, the question answer.
The short answer is no, because I'm not Plato. But one of my other writing partners and I have written some comedies about ancient Greece, which you can find on medium.com, called The Good Show. They're not Socratic dialogues. They are low comedy
Okay.
about ancient Greece.
Okay.
So, but no, I could. I mean, Socratic dialogue. I mean, there are other people who've written them. Paul Valéry, the French poet, wrote some. But I'm happy just to do what I do. So,
Yeah.
and there's everything comes out of Plato So in a certain sense,
Everything comes out of Plato.
yeah.
Yes. Michael, how did this life of yours inform your view of the world, understanding reality?
The movies? Or?
Yes, living in fiction.
Oh, I think it enriched it, and it helps me. And it's also about paying, books and poems and movies to get you to look somewhere, get you to pay attention to something, and experience I have coming out of movies that have been, I've seen in a theater in the dark with a bunch of people, and you come out and the world looks new. I've experienced that as a thing. So I think they help pay attention. I think is a good way to move through the world in part. Mostly.
And Kim, has this changed you in any way?
Well, yeah.
I mean, you really did not know science fiction.
No. And I'm never going to have the passion for these movies that Michael will. We knew that from the start.
Yeah.
No, what I learned from this was much more about what I learned from the collaborative process.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
the amazing favor that Michael did for me in engaging with this was I felt like, especially as we were helping each other revise, as we were going through it, and it's very hard to find outside of maybe school, to find that kind of intensity and those discussions about form and word choice and I don't know. I'm gonna embarrass him, but Michael is brilliant. He is. Most people who know him don't realize how brilliant he is because he's a little shy, but he is. What I have learned from working with him is invaluable.
Well, he's a Johnny. And also, when I think of what you've done together, it is really an amazement.
To me, it's a friendship in book form.
Yeah, but
So-
the fact that you were raised on Godzilla and then wrote policy for the State Department does worry me a bit.
USA, but yeah, absolutely.
Anybody about the poem want to say something about the poem?
Hearing you talk,
Oh, okay.
as I'm hearing you talk, this exchange that's going on
Yeah.
is a living friendship.
It
So
is, yeah.
I just wanted, I'm hearing you talk, and I thought, wow, this is like an ode to friendship.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So I've just enjoyed hearing your talk and your beautiful work together, and that's beautiful friendship.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Well, I have to give Kim a lot of credit too. I've learned as much from her as she has from me, I have to say. And I think we were both very game for this project, and we've been in a writing group for a long time together too, and have met before
we've
that.
known each other
and
for decades.
I think
Right.
I think we both take what we do seriously, but not over scrupulously serious. So, yeah. Yes, yeah, I've read some of it. It's really good. It takes on Chinese culture in like the Three Body Problem books. Yeah. Right. I have to say that she is a brilliant, brilliant translator, and you can look for her stuff. It's really impressive. Yeah.
I did have one question about specifically the Japanese
Yeah.
Made by the Japanese
Yeah.
filmmakers such as Godzilla and Rodan, which is one that scared the hell out of me walking out of the theater.
Yep.
Is that really these films were a response to the Japanese experience at the end of the war when they were subjected to atomic
I think they're encased in that.
the
Yeah.
the only country that's had that happen so far.
Right.
and which
Oh,
really
absolutely.
made a real impact on their view of the world. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest for me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's, I mean, it is true for all of them, although they change as time goes on, right? The original Godzilla is so clearly
Yeah.
the atom bomb, in some ways, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, absolutely, and but of course, what's interesting is America. They had a bunch of monster movies about radiation too,
Right.
but they
But
were
not-
the instigators, not
Right,
the receivers.
Not emanating out of Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, but yeah, no, there's something very poignant about the Japanese movies underneath the monster stuff. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining
Oh,
us.
one more?
Oh, sure. Do we have one more?
Please.
Oh, absolutely, Stella.
I guess I was wondering whether you guys had to like go back and look at particular frames as you were writing these.
We did not do that. I myself do not need to do that. But I think no. We
Kim?
watched the
Yeah.
movies again. As Kim said, this was a speed project. So we watched the movie once, and then she'd respond to that, and I'd take the movie and then her stuff, and we'd work it out from there. So. Yeah, I mean, that would have been
Michael
interesting.
did,
Yeah. I would point
he
things
would-
out.
Yeah, he would talk to me before we watched the movie and sort of direct me to things that I should pay attention to, which helped a lot. And I did take notes
Yes, you did.
oftentimes while
Yeah.
we were watching the movies.
Yeah.
But no, it was,
Yeah, I have frames in my brain. Sometimes mostly they're accurate, not always, but so it's the imagery is already there for me, and I think Kim was having this fresh take on it. So that makes sense. Yeah.
I guess there's one more question, Natalie?
We had, of course, just a small sampling of the movie interaction collaboration, but I was wondering for both of you, did you find that even doing something so unusual, really, just evoked in you writing about the same themes that each of you have at heart? In other words, did you find yourself writing yourself even in such an unusual context?
well, the interesting thing about the way we set up this reading today is you can really get a sense, I think, of how different our writing styles are, which, it hadn't even occurred to me that it would sort of set us up for
Yeah.
that contrast, so that when we read from the work we did together, you see we both traveled a distance to get to that point.
Because we were each writing our own poem, I didn't have to feel like I had to adopt my mindset so much as sort of respond to what Kim was doing and things like that. So I was responding as someone like myself to Kim's poem written by someone like herself to the movie that we watched.
Right. In other words, in Kim's poems, I would say the observation, even when it wasn't specifically nature, was kind of consistent with
Yeah.
the earlier work you read to us.
I think that's right. Yeah, I have written poems that are collaborative, and that's actually a different process. That's you have to accommodate each other. As long as you're sympathetic to each other, you have to accommodate each other. I mean, people do all sorts of things when they're writing collaborative poems, but yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I guess I was trying to say you're each speaking in your own voice.
Yes.
That's-
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Yeah.
I have to say,
but to each other.
I did enjoy there was a certain kind of role playing also of me as the naif and Michael as Yoda in this, and I did lean into that.
Yeah,
That was new.
I didn't mind that.
Thank you.
Of course not.
Yeah, let's give our poets a big
Thank you so
hand.
much for coming out. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
appreciate it.
You
Thank
can
you. Thanks for
con-
listening to us.
continue your conversations with these fabulous poets over at the bookstore. I also just want to remind you that we have upcoming 3 amazing poets as well. Bob Hickok, Tim Siebels, and Gregory Orr are coming in March, April, and May, and we'll be back to our usual time, which is 2 o'clock. So, hope to see you then and soon at the bookstore. Thank you again for joining us.
We have a good shtick, don't we? Yes, yep.